A rubbing or chafing wetsuit can be the worst. If not during, then certainly after, particularly when you've got to explain to your work colleagues what those rather unusual and embarrassing marks around your neck are. So today, I'm going to run you through a few tips on how to prevent your wetsuit from chafing. Okay, first on the list is this little gem, a lubricant. Now, Bodyglide is a very popular brand, but any lubricant will do, to be honest, providing it's water resistant or waterproof. However, it is advised you stay clear of petroleum-based lubricants like this. However, I've used a lubricant like this, Vaseline, my entire career and never noticed a thing, so it's entirely up to you. Obviously, the key area to apply this to is around your neck, both front and rear, but you may want to apply it under your arms or any other problematic areas. Also, because of its slippery properties, you might want to apply this to, say, your forearms or your calves just to help with the wetsuit removal as you're coming into T1. Now, in most cases, this is probably going to fix all your issues for you, all for less than $10 or 10 quid. And it's probably going to last you a number of years too. And then there's the fit of your wetsuit. Now, I appreciate this isn't something we can quickly and easily change, but it may at least highlight the reasons as to why your wetsuit is chafing or rubbing. Now, of course, the obvious we think of here is that your wetsuit's too small, and that is going to cause rubbing and chafing, which it can. However, the most common cause is actually when the wetsuit is too big. So the obvious is the neck's a bit loose, that's going to rub around, it's going to move on the neck. But actually, by being loose, it's then going to allow water into the wetsuit, filling up, and then actually pulling down and putting pressure on the back of the neck. So, my answer to you here is to make sure that you take time when choosing a wetsuit and making sure that it fits you correctly. Okay, next up we've got how you wear your wetsuit. And what I mean by this is how you're putting it on. Now, if you're putting it on in a minute or less, well done, but you're probably putting it on incorrectly. Now, personally, it takes me a good 5 minutes, sometimes more, to put my wetsuit on properly and thoroughly. And that's because I'm making sure that I'm pulling it up correctly and getting it up into the upper body. And it's kind of linked to the previous point about it pulling down on the neck, because if you aren't pulling up into the upper body and getting as much material up around your shoulders, the neck is going to pull down, it's going to start rubbing around the back of your neck. It's also going to start opening up gaps in the wetsuit that's going to obviously let water seep in and create the issues we discussed in the previous point. Another big thing with not getting the wetsuit on correctly and pulling up into the upper body is that it's going to start pulling down on the shoulders, and that's going to really restrict your movement of your arms and therefore actually start to affect your performance. Practice makes perfect. Yeah, of course it does. But genuinely, getting in the water and practicing your wetsuit as much as possible is really important. And then with that, you can start actually trying out pulling the wetsuit up into the upper body a little bit more, as we just discussed. Also, try out different tightnesses of the neck. You can go for a loose attachment or a tight attachment and just see how that feels, whether it's restricting your breathing or actually just stopping the water from coming in, etc., etc. But the really good bit is it's going to also start toughening the skin up. A little bit like when you first start running. You might start to get blisters initially and then they start to pass because the skin toughens up. We can essentially do the same thing in swimming. You might start to get blisters or start to get chafing initially around the neck, but over time that skin's going to toughen up and be more resistant. Obviously, it goes without saying we are all different shapes and sizes. One wetsuit that works perfectly for one person may be terrible for another person. So yeah, it may be time, if you're still struggling, to start looking at a different wetsuit, perhaps a different model of the same brand that you currently use, or perhaps maybe looking at a different brand. Every wetsuit is designed for different shapes, sizes, and all with different cuts and fits. You may find that one model has a very different cut around the neck to the previous, and that may be all that you need. Now, big advice here is if you can get along to a store or somewhere where you can actually try out these wetsuits prior to buying, and therefore you can start making a decision rather than just parting with your hard-earned cash with no idea of how it fits. Now, of course, we've discussed a lot of ways to prevent chafing or rubbing today, but what if you already unfortunately do have chafing or rubbing? Well, I've heard that Aquaphor is a very good brand and a very good substance for treating some of that chafing or rubbing. Personally, I've always used Savlon, but what if you want to jump back in the water and probably want to cover that area? Well, you might want to use athletic or KT tape that you may receive during physio treatment, or I've also seen people using neoprene collars. And this is something that we often see in events like swim run, where they're regularly going from swim to run, and it's just asking for chafing. So you see some quite ingenious ideas from swim run, so you may want to check that out if you're unsure. Also, you could just be quite generous with your application of Vaseline. That's what I've often gone for. Well, guys, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If so, please do give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe. But for now, I think I'm going to go and get in the water. I am incredibly hot. Cheers.